In this video, we'll be talking about complex numbers. By definition, the complex unit I is equal to the square root of -1. So if we square both sides, we get I squared is equal to -1. This is called Euler notation when you change the square root of a negative number to I. So anytime you have a negative sign under the square root symbol, change it to I times the square root of the number. In other words, change it to Euler notation. If we have the square root of -25, this is the same as the square root of 25 times the square root of -1. And we know that the square root of -1 is equal to I, and so this is the same as the square root of 25 is 5, so we have 5I. Let's change a few numbers to Euler notation. This one is the square root of 144 times the square root of -1. So square root of 144 is 12, and square root of -1 is defined as I. So this one's 12I. Square root of -32 we can change to square root of 32 times square root of -1, and square root of 32 is 2 times 16, so we know the square root of 16 is 4, and we know the square root of -1 is I, and we can't do anything to simplify the square root of 2, so this is going to be 4I root 2. Now the standard form of a complex number A plus BI, where A is the real part and BI is the imaginary part. All of these numbers are all complex numbers, but they are written in standard form because if you have, like for example, 5I, that's the same as 0 plus 5I. So any pure imaginary number that doesn't have the real part is still a complex number. If I have the number -2/3, that's still in complex number standard form, -2/3 plus 0I. Let's do one more of these. This is 5 square root of 9, and then square root of -1. Square root of 9 is 3, so this is 5 times 3 times I, which simplifies to 15I. So in standard form, that would be 0 plus 15I. Let's do some simplifying here. On this problem, we have to change all of the numbers that have a negative under the radical to Euler notation before we can start combining or even multiplying. So make that your first step. This is a square root of -1 times square root of 3. So we would write it as I root 3. And then here we have 3 times I root 2 times I root 9. And here we have I root 16. And this one's just root 16. So notice that all I did was, if I have a negative under the radical, I made it I times that radical. And now let's simplify the radicals that I can. This is 2, so I have I times root 3 times 2, and then this is 3 times I root 2, and I have actually I times I, so let's make this an I squared. And we'll change that in a minute. Root 9 is 3, and root 16 is 4, and same here. For this term, usually you put your rational factor in front. So I would write this as 2I root 3. And then here I have a 3 times 3, which is 9. And this I squared, remember I squared is defined as -1. So I have a negative, and 3 times 3 was 9, and then a root 2. And this one, put the 4 in as a coefficient in front of the I. 4I plus 4. Alright, now if we were going to write this in standard form, we'd want to find our real parts first. This number is real, imaginary, real, imaginary. So our standard form, a plus bi, I want my real numbers, and I'm going to write the 4 first since it's positive. So 4, and then minus 9 root 2. This is my real part, plus, and then my imaginary part, I'm going to factor the I out. So I'll have 4 plus 2 root 3 I.